There we go. Recording in progress. There we go. So now that we've gotten that going, I'm going to go ahead and hit play, share my screen. Zoom, Zoom. I have a bone to pick with you. All right, so let's do this. I'm gonna hit play here. And it didn't start on my first slide. So today, folks, we're going to be talking about discovering your core values, really honing in on your why, and setting some goals and just making shit happen. Of course, I always have to use that kind of as a nice little plug here. This next slide, there will be some links for core values worksheets and things like that. I'm going to see if I can actually link it and maybe share it in the chat so that we can actually access it. But first things first, before we even dive into the core values itself, please know that core values, what the heck are they? They really help you get kind of down to baseline of where your values are as a human and just in this particular life, okay? Core values can change and kind of ebb and flow depending on what season of life you're in, what kind of you're doing at the time, and just your growth as a human, as things evolve and whatnot. Now, what I like to do before I really dive into core values is I like to think about the moments. So I want you all to pause for a moment and think about the moments in your life when you have felt the most fulfilled. All right. I'm going to have an awkward silence here because I want you to really take a moment and stop listening to me and think about those moments in your life when you felt the most fulfilled. And by all means, you can, write these out. You can journal if you're into that. I know not everyone's into journaling. But grab a scrap piece of paper, write it down. What are some moments you feel most fulfilled? For me, it's usually when I'm on just a really rad group ride. Like I've had a couple of really awesome group rides. I've had a lot of group rides that are awesome in my life. But I know like one in particular, actually, Bree, you were with me. That one in particular at Three Sisters, that was such a cool group ride. Like I know everyone commented. I just felt like we were all kind of simpatico and it was just really cool. Other moments, whenever I'm in like group meditation, when I'm with family, especially after not seeing them for a while, those are just examples. Of course, it could be completely different for you. Once you think about those moments that you felt most fulfilled, I want you to reflect on what the themes of those moments are. So, what are kind of the underlying themes that go along with that? Is it kind of more family? Is it more community based? Something that's maybe health oriented? What is it for you? Does it have to do with work? Take a moment, think about it. What are some themes? See everyone's face. I want to see my face. All right. Now, once you have those moments in mind, as well as the themes that kind of go along with that, let's dive into the core values. Don't be alarmed. On the first sheet of the core values worksheet, now I'll send out the PDF. That way you all have access to the PDF as well. But on the first sheet, there is going to be a crap ton of values that are listed. All right. Almost too many, in my opinion. The second sheet, I boil it down because if you're like, oh, Jen, too many words. I don't do very well with words. I love words. Trust me, I'm a wordsmith, but I don't do well when there's just a screen of words, right? When it looks Shakespearean. So I have a second sheet that kind of filters them down, especially things that are a little bit more redundant in terms of values. Then on the third sheet is kind of a place where if you want to, you can print it out. If you have access to a printer, you can maybe even turn it into a writable PDF if you want. You can write down what your core values are. All right, so let me open it up here. And hold on a second here. It's not. All right, there you go. All right, can you all see the core values? Just thumbs up if, yeah, on screen. Yeah, okay. Again, this is kind of the more Shakespearean sheet here. All right, so a lot of core values, as you can see, from authenticity, adventure, attentive, to there. I went ahead and narrowed it down a little bit. Authenticity, achievement. This is going to be about 50 here, right? So the previous slide has a little bit more, but this page has less, a little bit more condensed here. So take a look through this, and I want you to just read through it. I'm gonna have quiet space here. Read through, try to pick 7 to 10 to start. Just things that really jump out at you and really resonate with you. It's a good time to kind of go with your gut and think about the things that really stand out for you, because we will filter it down to your top 3. So once you get about 7 to 10 of them kind of listed out, maybe on your piece of paper, or 7 to 10 in your mind right now, as you're looking through this, try to then filter down to your top 3. And these are going to be the ones that you feel just more strongly connected to and really feel like they reflect who you are. And it might be overwhelming to kind of filter down to 3. And maybe you already know your 3. You know, for me, I know it always feels good to kind of identify 5. But choosing 3 out of that top 5 is really just a nice way to kind of peel back and keep peeling back kind of who I am and how I identify with how these words reflect me and things like that. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to get to that point. So I'll give you folks another minute. Now, I am going to drop the, oops, hold on a second. I'm going to drop the link for you all to kind of see and reference this at any point. So even while I'm talking, if you want to look at this, by all means you can. So let me drop it in the chat here. Goodness gracious, folks. Zoom. Why you change things? Why you change things so often? And it's not like I don't use Zoom regularly. I use Zoom quite frequently. But I feel like they do a lot of updates. They're kind of like Apple. They do all these updates. I love Apple, but you know, enough is enough. All right, so there's a link. That way you can actually access Canva. You can't edit it, don't worry about that. But again, I will send out the PDF, so don't worry about that as well. All right. So from there, we'll go ahead and put that back. And I'm gonna put my screen on. Oh, Canva, what'd you do? There we go. Perfect. All right. It wasn't Canva, it was me. Use your ear. So again, choose the 7 to 10 top values that really resonate with you. Narrow it down, filter it down to 3 that really resonate with you based on the moments that you feel most fulfilled. Really kind of use that as like a litmus test, you know, keep going back to it. All right. Now I want you to think about those core values, and then I want you to think about like freezing. All right. So think about those 3 core values that you narrowed it down to, and think about what kind of person is it who has those 3 values reflected. You know, how would you summarize that person in a nutshell? in a sentence or two, right? Perfect example is, a person who is authentic. So if authentic is one of their core values, and compassionate to build community, for example, that's something that usually resonates with me. Just something or someone who kind of comes off as authentically as they can, just, who they are, and try to be as raw as possible and show compassion for others. And then obviously my values are community, compassion, and authenticity. Other ones, of course, include like family and people who are close to me in my relationships. So just to give you a little bit of an idea on how I kind of use that phrase, who that person is that reflects those core values. So think about it and kind of put it into a little bit of a statement. You don't have to share this, but it's kind of more for you, because we can have our three core values all day long, right? But if we're not really identifying a person that, how does that person look and seem when they reflect those core values? If we're not doing that, sometimes we can just live through these words, and sometimes it doesn't really give them meaning. But because we have imaginations more or less as humans, it's really strong. It kind of empowers those words by creating a person that is not you, but it is you, that reflects those core values, if that makes sense. So it just kind of helps to imagine and visualize that, right? Because visualization is an incredibly strong tool. All right, so core values, that gives you a little bit of an idea on who you are. All right, and then next, I want to talk about discovering your why here. All right, so this is when we kind of boil it down to, like, hey, what is important? What is important to you? You know, why did you sign up for Shred Strong? Or why do you have a particular goal? What is that? And what I like to share with folks is to dive deeper into that. So think about, like, what's your initial why on, whatever goal it is for you. Then dive deeper. So we want to actually start to kind of peel back the layers of the onion a little bit. So ideally, it's really smart to ask yourself why 3 to 5 times. So, hey, I have this goal of completing, Firecracker 50 in July. Awesome. Why? Why is that your goal? Uh, because I want to, see if I can actually do something that's incredibly challenging, that has really, high grade climbing and elevation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, why? I just want to know that I'm capable of doing something for a long distance. And then you can kind of filter it down. I know for a lot of folks that I work with one-on-one, for example, especially with health coaching, the biggest ultimate why is because they want to, enjoy their life with their kids. They want to be able to pick up, their kids. They want to be able to play with their kids, or they want to be able to care for an ailing loved one, or, whatever it is. And I think it's really special when you can kind of filter it down into your ultimate why. So it is kind of an annoying process to keep asking why. It sounds like a 5-year-old, right? Asking, the persistent whys. But discovering your why is incredibly important. And once you get to that core why, write it down. Write down that boiled down why and post it where you can see it often. For me, my why is usually on a photo frame that's to the left of my monitor on my desk. So I see it quite often. I have actually removed it since, because it was starting to lose its stickiness. But it's nice to have it as a daily reminder of just kind of why you're doing the thing. Why do you have that goal? And sometimes you need that as a little bit of a reminder to make things happen and maybe shift happen, and just make your goals a reality. Okay. Now, when it comes to goals, we want to dive into goals. And really, James Clear, I'm a big James Clear fan. If you haven't figured that out yet, just with posts that I make and things like that. But James Clear is known for saying that it all comes down to the difference between goals and systems. So we can have goals all day, but systems ultimately is where it actually happens, where this magic happens. All right, so I lost my cursor. Curses. So why you should focus on systems and processes and not goals. I'm going to outline some stuff for you here. Goals minimize your happiness. You're only happy basically if you achieve the goal. So once you achieve a particular goal, great, you keep moving that goalpost further and further down the line. And that can be exhausting AF, right? The solution to this is to commit to the process or system and not necessarily a particular goal. right? You can have the particular goal, which you're going to, learn about here in the next few minutes, have a particular goal that you want to reach for, but let's break it down into, what are the processes and systems that you can put into place to really make that happen, make that goal a reality, okay? Second thing here is, for why you should focus on systems processes is that goals prohibit long-term success. Again, kind of like to that notion of like constantly moving the goalpost. The solution here is to let go of any type of immediate results because, yeah, we're not Amazon Prime. I think ultimately, we get so hung up on the idea of things being delivered within, 2 to 3 day period. And sometimes we expect that with our actual goals and performance, especially. So performance metrics, we don't want to necessarily put on that type of pedestal and instead really try to think in terms of short term. What are some things that you can do immediately, especially daily or week to week basis? Okay, instead of thinking like kind of long term, six months out, because kind of like when you think about your core values and it seems a little elusive and kind of something that isn't necessarily concrete. Same thing happens with a long term goal, like a goal that is a deadline of 6 to 12 months out, right? It seems like it's just not a reality because it seems so far away, if that makes sense. Okay. The third reason why you should focus on systems and processes are that goals make you think you can control everything in your life. Shocker, you can't, yeah, perfect example. Last few months, for those of you who know me as a friend, just a lot of things have just been kind of like breaking around the house randomly. And then Milo got sick, and then I've had my own health issues. So it felt like kind of the rule of three was out the window, and it was more like the rule of six things happening in a matter of 3 months. Just things happen, and I know a lot of other folks here in the group also have been having just a lot of life events because yeah, life gets lifey. Like I'm going to share here on the next slide and we just can't control a lot a lot of things in our life, if not everything in your life. Okay, only thing you can really control is how you respond to things, right? But the solution here is to use these small feedback loops, and try to assess and not guess. The recommendation is try to assess weekly. All right, so when you put these systems and processes in place for your ultimate goal, which we'll talk about here in a second, assess every week. Hey, how did that work? Kind of like, with Helen's situation, like, hey, my testing kind of like felt awful one day, but then the next day actually felt really good. So maybe that was just an off day for training, just as an example. Okay. But assessing weekly helps you kind of learn what is working and what's not, and what might need to kind of change or shift around to make it work better for you. Okay. Um, this ultimately allows your process or system to signal when you need to adjust, and it helps us stay fluid to everything. All right. So those are the reasons why we should try to focus on systems and processes that you want to put in place for your overarching goal. Now, this is not to say that goals are completely useless, because that is not true whatsoever. Goals are awesome for planning your progress. Case in point, I have a big, hairy, audacious goal that is, going to take place this summer. And that is helping me kind of break down what I'm going to be doing between now and then. Okay. So you want to have a little bit of a goalpost in mind, but that's not your end goal. All right. Your end goal, but like you want to break that end goal down into like bits and pieces. That way it's a little bit more consumable and not overwhelming. Cool. So the processes are what help you kind of stair step into getting to that end goal. Cool. So goals, they give you the direction, they give you that true north that you can head towards, right? And they help kind of reestablish any type of motivations that you want to feel, any type of like willpower and things like that, because you can see that kind of in the end goal in mind, right? But having some systems and processes in place is really what makes the difference. And honestly, is what can make a goal successful or not, all right? And make you successful rather or not at meeting that goal. All right. James Clear again, I told you I was a big fan girl. So a better way to achieve your goal is to set a schedule to operate by rather than a deadline to perform by. Because again, that deadline can feel super overwhelming. That distant goal can seem almost surreal. But if you have a certain schedule between now and then and things that you're going to put in place with the processes and systems, that's when the magic happens. Cool. So this is what you should focus on for your goals. Just realize to use the word need. And that is a word I'm trying to take out of my vocabulary. I need water to survive. I need food to not be a hangry, angry, hangry human. But you don't necessarily need to do this to focus on these things for your goals. Maybe a better word was just, what's ideal to focus on for your goals. All right. Um, Big thing is focus on one goal at a time. Try to avoid any type of goal competition. I love it, especially, I come from a CrossFit background, and um, I love it when CrossFitters have this goal like, hey, I want to deadlift like 500 pounds. And then I also want to, at the same time, be able to train for a marathon or some sort of endurance sport. And I've had quite a few friends actually with this goal in particular. Or, sometimes they'll narrow it down to like, I want to deadlift 2.5 times my body weight and also train for this 50-mile mountain bike ride or something like that, right? Which is really awesome. But, CrossFitters just want to show kind of that broad range of training, like they're having a nice general program approach. Okay. Now, unfortunately, it is a little bit of a goal competition and it does require you to have kind of competing elements in your training throughout the week. So that's the only reason why it can kind of sometimes blow up in your face. While I have known a couple of folks and friends of mine who have been successful at meeting that goal of deadlifting an obscene amount of weight, as well as doing, some sort of endurance effort, it's just the constant theme for them is they were just like, you know what, it wasn't that enjoyable because, while I love those two elements, I felt like I was so spread. I was really trying to actually spread my focus throughout the week. And that's why it's just nice to not have competing goals, right? So try to be particular about what goals you select in terms of your ultimate goalpost. Okay. And then next, focus on taking massive action because that is one thing that, when you think about a goal by a certain date, again, it can just feel really overwhelming. So set that schedule to take those little daily actions and weekly actions towards those goals. Okay. Again, we're focusing on consistency, never perfection. Not use the word, never very often, but try not to focus on being perfect because perfect doesn't really exist, right? But trying to be as consistent as possible is really what's going to make a difference. And, I've actually had a coach tell me this before in the past, and I couldn't help it, just love it. And I wanted to include it here again is that consistent imperfect action is better than infrequent imperfect action, because at least then you have consistency in terms of showing up, even if it's maybe you show up for 15 minutes of intervals and not your 30 or 45 minutes that was on your plan. That's fine because you at least did 15 minutes of it and not necessarily the full thing. So something again is better than nothing, right? Especially if you're feeling okay. Now, this is an important thing is aligning your environment with your goals. All right. How? Like prepare your environment to make action easy and simple. My perfect example for this is workout, right? Um, Sometimes when we're planning to do a workout on a particular day, if we're planning on doing a workout tomorrow, for example, I'm going to be doing, deadlift day one tomorrow because it's Tuesday. And tonight I'm going to actually set out my workout clothes and I'm going to try to get to it tomorrow, after breakfast. And I'm going to set out my workout clothes though. That way, when I wake up, take off my night clothes, put on my workout clothes, go down, make some breakfast, have a little bit of coffee, start my work. And then after digestion takes place, I'm going to get my workout done. But I've already made it easier by just getting my workout clothes on. Now, of course, I do have a little bit more flexibility just working from home. So I completely recognize that. And I know that not everyone has that as a shared thing, right? But setting up your environment, that's just an example of setting up the environment to make things happen, okay? Setting up the environment on top of setting that schedule is really what's going to make it easy and simple and attainable. The easier and more accessible you can make these things, make it that action happen, it'll actually happen, okay? Now, last but not least, measure the progress of your systems. Again, assess, reassess, shift as needed. Love to actually do a time audit sometimes, especially when I'm in moments of feeling overwhelmed. Because I am the type of person, I'll just go ahead and share a little bit about me. Maybe this resonates with you all. I'm the type of person, if I get a text, I do feel like I need to respond, right away. If it's a friend, especially if they're in need, obviously. So even regardless of what I have going on, I'll usually neglect that if I'm trying to trying to get something done, I'll still just I feel the need to respond because I think it's important. And again, relationships and friendships are very important to me, right? And family is very important to me. But sometimes it's not the best way for me to spend time. Okay. Sometimes I need to not be distracted and be distracted by like a text exchange with a good friend of mine, for example. And sometimes I just need to go ahead and, put the phone down and kind of get my workout done. And that's just a perfect example. Maybe that resonates with you as well. Maybe it's, a matter of kind of fitting in things with kids' activities and after school activities and sports. Because I know school started and I know a few of your are parents here in this group right now. But whatever it is for you, I personally I'm child free, so I don't have that. That doesn't resonate with me, even though I do understand where that comes from. But it's just kind of a matter of choosing how you're spending your time, and doing a little bit of a time audit and seeing how your priorities are kind of throughout the day, because I feel like your priorities do really set the tone for the day. But check in with yourself throughout the day. And I always like to ask myself, is this in alignment with my goals, especially when I find myself scrolling? Um, and it's hard because again, I want to communicate with my friends online. I want to have like relationships with them and friendships and things like that. But sometimes I just need to like just exit, uh, you know, and get out of social media, for example, and get out of the scroll monster. But everyone's different. Maybe it's something different for you. But I do like to use that question as like kind of a little bit of a test, like is what I'm doing right now in alignment with what I need to do and my priorities for the day, and in terms of my goals and things like that. All right. So hopefully that kind of breaks things down for you. But ultimately, Seth Godin, he likes to say that you don't need more time, you just need to decide. And what he's getting at is using that statement on the previous slide. Like, is this in alignment with my goals? And really kind of checking in with yourself and being honest with yourself and just, asking like, hey, is what I'm doing right now really what I should be doing right now in terms of what goals I have set for myself and what standards I have for myself, and especially in alignment not only with your goals but with your values too. And I feel like that's where it really helps kind of get in alignment with those values and get clear on what your values are, because then it's a little bit of a magical place to kind of find yourself. Okay. All right. So life gets lifey. I told you I was going to have a discussion about this because, hey, yeah, life, it happens. It gets a little saucy. Life is a saucy little mix. And there are going to be moments when you're feeling overwhelmed and feeling like maybe you just don't have enough time in the day. Totally fine. You're human. What I usually recommend when things go sideways is choose 1 to 2 days a week that work best with your schedule and your energy. All right. Because everyone has energy flows. This could be variable depending on, school schedule, work schedule, life schedule, whatever it is. Okay. Then once you pick 1 to 2 days, just as a bare minimum, all right, focus on about, I put 30 to 40 minutes of strength, but honestly, like, even if you can get like 15 minutes in, come on, just get in something. Again, we want to set the habit. We want to be able to get you to move a little bit and get some body movement in because it feels good, gets dopamine, gets the feel good hormones going. But ultimately, what my recommendation is just do strength days 1 and 2 if you want to on the schedule. If that's kind of your bare minimum and you're like, hey, Jen, I've kind of got my own cardio schedule, things like that. Great. Go ahead and supplement that with days 1 and 2, or maybe even the third day of strength, whatever works for you, whatever you kind of want to work on, and be flexible with whatever you decide. So know that this is not set stone. Things can be moved around the schedule. This is a group training program. By all means, you don't have to tell me if you've changed anything. You don't have to explain yourself. You're an adult. You're a human. You can make your own decisions. It's totally fine. But if you do need to kind of bounce an idea off of me, just for kind of support, by all means, reach out to me, message me in the app. But just know that you can move things around on the calendar anytime. Okay. But other suggestions are, if you're feeling overwhelmed, man, nothing beats, in my opinion. You might think differently, but I would think generally we're going to have the same consensus here. But just getting outside, spend some time outside, get sun on your skin if you're in a sunny area. You know, maybe ride your bike if the trails are clear. Bree, like you said, Alberta, that snow is gone. So yeah, enjoy the trails if they're nice and clear. Ride, do your favorite cardio for fun. If that's cross country skiing, great, go with it. Do whatever really resonates with you and feels good. All right. Maybe even walk more or do some sort of other low impact movement. If you like to skip rope, if you like to, I don't know, get on the elliptical that's been sitting in your basement for 10 years. Who knows? Like whatever works for you. If it just feels good to you, just move. I'm all about just trying to get in a little bit of daily movement in just to get out of the house or get out of work or whatever you need to do, just to give yourself that brain space and physical space. But just try to move a little bit more because that does help. The more you move your body, even if it is just intentionally walking and things like that, it can actually help you feel good and not feel down or even a little low or depressed. Okay. And then certainly last but not least, take rest days, prioritize your recovery, sleep, stress management, things like that. So just know, there's no real perfect time to join a new program or try a new habit or anything like that. Um, the best thing to do is just to get things in alignment with what you want to do. What are those processes that you want to put in place, for your ultimate goals? Great. Well, let's narrow it down into what are some things that I can manage to do when I'm really overwhelmed and like maybe I'm sick or a family member's sick or something's happening, life is getting lifey. What are kind of the bare minimums that I can do and that can help make me feel good? All right. Sometimes it's just a nice reminder to know, like, hey, you can lean on those things. All right. Now, ultimately, yeah, you're starting a new program. For those of you that have been in Shred Strong for a little while, great. We're mixing some things up with this. Of course, it is the start of the fall winter season. So I always like to kind of go back, rewind some things. Let's get into some like activation movements. Let's get our shoulders feeling good because there have been a few folks that are like, oh man, Jen, I've been sleeping like all kinds of weird, like arm is underneath my pillow. I'm starting to have some like weird shoulder things. So great. We're doing some like little activation things, stability things, just to kind of get the body moving again and just get you in tune with that mind muscle connection, which is going to be awesome. But because you are starting something new, or maybe you're getting back into doing Shred Strong a little bit more consistently, these are my recovery tips for combining strength training with biking or cross country skiing or whatever you decide to do. First, sleep, damn it. Like I can't tell you. I'm a shitty sleeper. Historically, I am not the best sleeper in the world. I'm kind of a light sleeper. It has gotten significantly better over the past few years and definitely better and better and better as I've kind of gotten a little bit older and I've kind of made a little bit more of a concerted effort on focusing on my sleep. Imagine that. Focusing on kind of my wind down time. Of course, if you're a new parent, I understand this is going to be a little bit different and it's not going to maybe look the same for everyone else. Okay. That's fine. Just do what you're able to in your bandwidth. Okay. But do try to make the quality of your sleep a priority. Make it dark, maybe wear an eye mask or earplugs, whatever works for you, whatever you feel good doing. Try to keep the temperatures cool, things like that. Next is take at least a day of rest, maybe 2 days if that feels like a good place for you, and definitely take advantage of deload weeks. They're a fantastic way to kind of down regulate any type of intensity and effort. Next is consume mostly whole foods, minimize ultra processed and fast foods. Please note, I did not say eliminate. Food is food. It's just some foods can cause a little bit more, you know, chronic inflammation. That's what you kind of want to avoid because you're already going to be maybe a little bit more inflamed just from being an active human. All right. You're out in the elements, you're active, you're kind of breaking down your muscles a little bit. Fine. You want to support that with some good quality nutrition. Does that mean you need to get all natural and organic everything? No. Get what you're able to budget. Just try to focus on some more whole foods recipes and things like that. Um, making pizza at home, for example, portobello pizza. I'm going to go over to Rebecca's house right now and enjoy some pizza. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. But, perfect example. Like you're making some homemade pizzas. Great. It's fantastic. It's fun food. You can have all your food groups on a piece of pizza. I think pizzas and tacos are perfect vehicles for a whole food item. But just a perfect example, I'm not the type of person to demonize food, and I hope that you all don't as well. But do focus on, colorful foods if you can. Next is hydration. Hydration can help, of course, keep illnesses at bay. My aim as a health coach is to share with all of you some of these tips. So hopefully you find this useful. But I usually like to have folks aim for about 50% of their body weight in pounds. Sorry, Brie, I didn't do kilograms. But take your body weight in pounds, take 50% of that. Kind of start there, usually in the 40 to 50% range is ideal. And start there in terms of ounces of fluid. So say you're a 150-pound person, great. Take half of that. And that's how many ounces you're actually going to aim for, right around like 75 or so. So just to give you an idea, all right? Now, on top of that, if you do sweat, every hour that you sweat, try to get about 16 or so ounces of water. Maybe even try to get some electrolytes in if you can. But that'll help, staying hydrated would just help you kind of feel good. Will help you not feel like you're, dry mouth type of situation. And honestly, just helps with digestion and things like that too. And then the last couple tips here are, mobilize, stretch, work the ranges of motion as best as you can. I do try to put that in my programming. It's a habitual thing that I do with my programming, just to try to force people to kind of get past a comfortable range of motion, really just kind of see what feels good. And the reason for that is even if you do have arthritic joints is, we're moving that synovial fluid that's in your joint, and it's helping to kind of lubricate the joint. And that feels good. It might feel a little uncomfortable maybe at first, or feel like, oh, wow, there's a little bit more pressure in my knee when I do that, or that feels different. It's because generally you haven't been doing it. And sometimes the synovial fluid just doesn't have a chance to kind of get in the entire joint or move around as much. And, stiffness and things like that can kind of occur. So we want to kind of practice on moving through that range of motion. Okay. Now, if anything causes any pain, great. Let me know. I can give you a substitution, obviously, but ultimately, it is nice if it's causing pain and it's chronic pain, sharp pain, stabbing pain. Get it looked at by a professional. Preferably like a physio or physical therapist, and they can give you a little bit of guidance on what it could be. All right. And then last but not least, just managing stress as best as possible. Now, of course, I know that this is all like, subjective, but do the best you can. Stress is going to be an everyday factor. Again, life gets lifey, right? But just trying to make sleep prep priority, first of all, because that helps with stress. But then also looking into some of that deep belly breathing exercises and things like that. And don't worry, I know folks who have been in Shred Strong, they've seen the last 4 weeks of me kind of sharing these breathing exercises and tips and things like that. But if you're new to the programming, don't worry, I did actually cross post a lot of these to the Facebook group. That way you still have access to it as well. And it's maybe not in the group chat or accessible to you because you're new to the program. So you might not see some of my previous group chat stuff. But look in the Facebook group and, just kind of look into some box breathing and things like that. These are things that I do include at the end of some of the mobility programs or the mobility flows that are in the programming right now. So, take a look at that. That is something that I always include at the end of mobility sessions, except for sometimes the post ride, deload or flow rather. The reason for that is just because it can help just unwind you a little bit. All right, especially if you do have a habit of going really hard at the gym or hard at home workouts, whatever it is, sweating a little bit. Great, it's nice to have just a moment, even if it's just a minute of just down regulating your system a little bit and kind of making it not into a flight or flight situation. Plus, the bonus is if you do have a history of low back pain, belly breathing can actually help with that. So now I kind of wanted to open up, unmute. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. But yeah, take a moment, unmute, and let me kind of know, any questions that you have for the last 10 minutes or so. We can also end early, whatever works for you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to open it up to you all. You can add a question in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Unmute. Bree's like, I'm trying to think of a question. Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate it. Hopefully your pizza tastes good. I'm sure it does.
It was very good.
Yes. Oh, damn.
It's the easiest thing too. I love it. It's just put a little bit of pizza sauce on a portobello mushroom with some tomatoes and other veggies and maybe some pepperoni if you want. And then
you're doing the portobello as because of
it's my base.
Exactly, gluten. That's
and
fantastic.
cheese on top. It's quite delicious.
Okay.
Super
What was
easy.
the crust? Did you
It's a
homemade the
portobello
crust?
mushroom. No, it's an actual portobello mushroom that I use, like just to,
Crust. Oh,
yeah,
got
no
it.
crust.
That's the
Yeah.
base. Okay.
So they're like little mini portobello pizza, like mushroom pizzas, I guess. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. I need to find a substitution for mozzarella cheese, unfortunately. Although the last couple times I've been having mozzarella cheese has been successful.
oh,
So I'm excited about that.
no, this
Sorry,
definitely
folks.
included cheese.
Yeah, yeah. For folks who don't know, I have a recent like dairy intolerance, which is very new to me. But yeah, thanks, COVID. Anyone have anything you want to add? Questions? Want me to kind of review anything? No? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, so awesome. Well, thanks again for joining. I really appreciate it. I am known to extend and draw out goodbyes. I will try not to do that today. I'm trying to be more diligent and deliberate with my closing. But seriously, thanks for joining today. I will get everything loaded up, the recording wise, into YouTube. I'm going to share the video link with you all within the next 24 hours. So be on the lookout with that. I'll email it and then I'll post it in the group chat too. And the only reason I do that, I'm not trying to annoy the living hell out of anyone. I'm just trying to, because folks usually are like, hey, wait, oh, something's buried in my email, and they at least have a couple different ways to kind of access it. Okay. Well, awesome. Just know I'm a message away in case you have any questions. And I hope you all have a beautiful night.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thanks. Bye,
Bye.
folks. Have a good night.